Welcome to the Nobel Prize Museum. It's Literature Thursday. We're so excited to hear who will be this year's Nobel Prize laureate in literature. In just 10 minutes, it's that famous moment when Mats Malm, the permanent secretary of the Swedish Academy, will enter through the doors just 2 floors above us here in Gamla stan and announce this year's Literature Prize winner. In his will, Alfred Nobel declared that all his wealth should be used to form 5 yearly prizes, one of them within the field of literature. Since 1901, there has been a total of 118 writers, poets, playwrights, and songwriters who have become Nobel laureates in literature. Today, we will find out who will become the 119th. That's what we're here to find out. A special welcome to the Year 9 students from Enbackskolan here in Stockholm. I've heard that you've prepared some great questions. Looking forward to hear them. Also, welcome to those of you following us online. You can also submit your questions using the Menti code provided. And here to answer all our questions and guide us through the day, we've invited editor, journalist, writer Svante Weiler. Svante, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So, you know just as little as we do who
Yes.
will become this year's Nobel laureate. Are you excited?
I'm pretty excited. I've been excited this day for 45 years because that's how long I've been in the business. I've covered this day as a journalist. I've covered this or seen this day come as an editor, as a publisher, 2 different roles. But this has been a day of excitement throughout all my life.
Do you have any particular routine? Do you stay at home? Do you go to...
You know, 1 year I changed shirt in the morning.
Okay.
I went to a place in a white shirt, but I thought this is a day for a blue shirt. Because I was expecting a special guy to win.
And that was?
That was Imre Kertész, a writer that I published, a very good friend.
Right.
And that day is still in my memory as one of the most remarkable days of my life, from the early morning till late in the evening.
He was awarded the prize, right?
He was awarded the prize. He was awarded the prize, and he was a good friend.
Right. So let's dive right into speculations, because that's what's funny.
Yeah.
So first of all, do you have a personal favorite?
I have several personal favorites. Some of them I've published, which makes it a little bit too personal, because then somebody would say he will make money out of that. So if I tell you about Marilyn Robinson, well, that's one of my favorites, Marilyn Robinson. I also like Joyce Carol Oates, an American writer. Those are both American. And then there's a Hungarian writer, Péter Nádas, whom I think is the best writer living today in the world.
Oh, those are big words.
That's big words. Those are big words. But some writers are a little bit better than other writers. And this Péter Nádas, he's Hungarian. He's a little bit older than me. He's in his 80s. And he's written a couple of books that in 20 years, if you need to know what happened on this continent, in Europe, all the bad things, all the wars, all the dictatorships, and all the personal stuff involved with that, you have to read him. The other books just wither away, and Péter Nádas' books are still there. So
I see.
He could get it.
So last year, the prize was awarded to Abdul Razak Gurna, a British author with Zanzibarian heritage. Virtually no one had heard of him. Were you familiar with him?
I had heard of him, but as most people in the business, that was the same thing. We didn't know him. Very few of us had read him. He was very little translated into foreign languages. He wrote in English. So that was a real surprise. One of the most surprising choices of the Academy over the last 20, 30 years.
Would you say that there's an underlying ambition from the Swedish Academy to find those hidden gems?
Well, there could be. There could be. It's often said that the Academy likes to surprise us. Which is, to me, a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing because the Nobel Prize in Literature should go to a writer whom we know. Not just because we know it, but because this is the biggest prize, and it's a prize with such authority and such. You know, if you get this prize, you will be invited to all universities in the world. Your books will be translated into all languages, and your personal feeling as a Nobel Prize winner is so huge. So I think you must publish pretty many books, and they should be pretty well read and
Certain level of
a
quality.
certain level of quality. I don't say Gunnar didn't have that really, because there are hidden gems all over. There's so many writers who write well, but this prize is for a happy few.
Right. So I've looked at the bookmakers. There are odds. Have you placed any bets?
Nope, no, that's too vulgar for me. But I don't place bets on football either. So
Okay. One of the names that's been recurring is Indian-British author Salman Rushdie, and that would also be a political statement. Some people are arguing, seeing that there's a whole lot of history. He was also attacked.
But primarily a literary prize. I am one of those who think Salman Rushdie should have had the prize for the last 30 years. He's made something remarkable. He's written some books that will also, like Peter Nadesh, be world literature and go into the history of literature. But today, you know, Salman Rushdie was almost murdered a month ago by a crazy guy. So now it would be regarded as some kind of not reward, but consolation for him.
Right.
He should have had the prize anyway.
Okay. So let's play a little game. I have a medal here, a delicious chocolate medal. You get 3 picks, and if any of those picks are awarded the prize, we'll find out in only 2 minutes. So you have to do this quickly.
You know, you're playing with a guy who I've made tips before.
You've been correct?
I've been correct.
Oh, okay, so high risk game here, high stakes at risk. So 3 names, please. Who do you think will the most probable laureates?
One of the persons who's most talked about now and who is really a favorite is the French writer Annie Ernaux. She would deserve it. Another one would be Peter Nadesh.
Okay, I'll write these down.
And let's see, the third one. That's a tricky one. Who could be the third one if I had to choose or believe in?
What do you think about Joyce Carol Oates?
Well, I don't think she'll get it, though I think she deserves it. We'll say Joyce Carol Oates, though.
Okay, so Annie Ernaux, Peter Nadesh, and Joyce Carol Oates.
French and Hungarian and American.
So that's the chocolate medal right there. Okay. What about?
I really want to have that.
We have 1 more minute. What about Scandinavian writers? Are there any on the horizon?
There is a wonderful Norwegian writer, Jon Fosse, who deserves the prize. Who really deserves the prize. He's an interesting, mystic guy. He could have it. And then he has a young competitor, you could say, Knausgård, who would also get the prize. That would be a great surprise, but that would be a great joy for normal readers and people reading many books and good books, because Knausgård is so well read.
Okay. The top candidate among the bookmakers right now is Michel Houellebecq, French controversial author.
That would be a tremendous surprise. And to me, a little bit of a scandal. I don't think he deserves that prize. He really doesn't deserve that prize.
Okay. Any particular reason? Why do you think he's number one?
I don't think he's good enough, and I think he's a pleaser. He's a crowd pleaser.
Okay.
And you shouldn't get the prize, the Nobel Prize, if you're a crowd pleaser.
All right. We're turning over to the announcement in just a minute. 16 out of 118 laureates so far have been women. Will there be a woman this year?
Well, I think there will be women this year. I hope there will be women this year. They have a lot to catch up, or the Academy has a lot to catch up when it regards the women. The Academy has been blind to women for at least half of its existence. It's opening its eyes now slowly, as the readers have done centuries ago.
Okay. I think it's 1 o'clock, and Clément, how are we doing? Okay, keep going. What about, again, we mentioned Salman Rushdie, that would be a political statement. Are there any Ukrainian authors?
Well, there are no Ukrainian author of that.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you.
Of that standard. Now
you turn
look at the door.
to Börssalen and follow the live streaming from the announcement. Okay. So we're waiting for Mats Malm to enter through the doors from the Permanent Secretary's chamber into Börssalen, here in this very building, just 2 floors above us, right? The old stock exchange building. Here he comes.
Varmt välkomna till detta tillkännagivande. Jag heter Mats Malm och är Svenska Akademins ständiga sekreterare. Akademin har just sammanträtt och kan nu presentera sitt beslut om vem som tilldelas årets Nobelpris i litteratur. Very welcome to the Swedish Academy. My name is Mats Malm and I am the permanent secretary. The Academy has convened and can now announce its decision on the Nobel Prize in Literature. Nobelpriset i litteratur år 2022 tilldelas den franska författaren Annie Ernaux för det mod och den kliniska skärpa varmed hon avtäcker det personliga minnets rötter, främlingskap och kollektiva ramar. The Nobel Prize in Literature but we expect her to soon be aware of the news. And after all these years of quarantine and restrictions, we plan to present her with the Nobel Prize on December 10th here in Stockholm. Jag lämnar nu ordet till Nobelkommitténs ordförande Anders Olsson som kommer att berätta om pristagaren. Därefter kommer han och Nobelkommittéledamoten Ellen Mattsson att svara på frågor. I now give the floor to Anders Olsson, chair of the Nobel Committee, who will present the laureate. Subsequently, he and member of the Nobel Committee, Ellen Mattsson, will answer questions.
Varmt välkomna till denna presskonferens om årets Nobelpristagare i litteratur. Mitt namn är Anders Olsson, ordförande i Nobelkommittén, och vid min sida står Ellen Mattsson, också medlem i kommittén. Övriga medlemmar i kommittén som har förberett årets pris är Stig Sandberg, Anne Svärd och Per Westberg. Adjungerad medlem i kommittén har varit Mats Malm, Svenska Akademins ständige sekreterare. A warm welcome to this press conference on the Nobel Prize Laureate of Literature 2022. My name is Anders Olsson, chair of the Nobel Committee, and by my side is Ellen Mattsson, also a member of the committee. The other members of the committee that have prepared the Nobel Prize in Literature 2022 are Stig Sandberg, Anne Svärd and Per Westberg. Co-opted member of the committee has been Mats Malm, permanent secretary of Swedish Academy. Before opening up for questions, I would like to make a brief presentation in English of the laureate and her work. More information about our laureate is on the Swedish Academy's website and on nobelprize.org. This year's Nobel laureate in literature, the French writer Annie Ernaux, was born in 1940 and grew up in the little town of Yvetot in Normandy. Her setting was poor but ambitious, and in her oeuvre she consistently explores the experience of a life marked by great disparities regarding gender, language, and class. Her literary work dealing with her class experience and rural background began early as a memory project with the ambition of widening the boundaries of literature beyond fiction in the narrow sense. In its reconstruction of the past, it leans on Marcel Proust's À la recherche du temps perdu, but she guides the search in an entirely new direction. Despite her consciously plain literary style, she declares that she is an, quote, ethnologist of herself, end quote, rather than a writer of fiction. Annie Ernaux's debut was Les Armoires Vides, came 1974, in English, Cleaned Out. And already in this work, she began her investigation of a Norman background, but it was first with her fourth book, La Place, in 1983, in English, A Man's Place, that she made her literary breakthrough. In this masterpiece, in a scant 100 pages, she gives an elucidating portrait of her father and of the entire social milieu that fundamentally formed him. In the portrait, she applies what would become her restrained and ethically motivated aesthetics, where her style has been forged hard and transparent. This launched a series of autobiographical prose works with a wider social context. One of these achievements is the brief and sensitive portrait of her mother called Une Femme. It came in 1987, in English, A Woman's Story. Another is La Honte, 1997, in English, Shame. In many ways, a continuation of the portrait of the father, analyzing the social roots of shame that would recur in many of her books. A special place in a production has a deeply engaging, clinically restrained narrative about the 23-year-old narrator's illegal abortion, L'événement, in 2000. In English, it's called Happening. Annie Ernaux's writing is subordinated throughout to the process of time, and nowhere else does the power of social conventions over our lives play such an important role as in Les Années. It appeared in 28. In English, The Years. It is a most ambitious project and has been called the first collective autobiography. It won her an international reputation and a raft of followers and literary disciples. There is in Ernaux no effective memory, as in Proust, that can transport us directly to the source of truth. In Les Années, the spontaneous memory of the self is substituted by the third person of collective memory, suggesting what songs are sung, what stories are told, or what trends are ruling at a particular time. And those conventions quickly pass by. In Ernaux, personal and collective memory have merged. In Annie Ernaux's social perspective, the mechanisms of shame have a special force, and in Mémoires de Fille from 2016, in English, A Girl's Story, she uncovers them from another angle. In this work, she confronts her self-image as a young woman at the end of the 1950s, when she loses her virginity at a summer colony in Orne, Normandy.
We'll switch over to here. Annie Ernaux, one of your picks.
Wow.
Chocolate. Round of applause. Well done.
And I have to tell you, this is also solemn and slow, but Annie Ernaux is quick and hot and readable to each and every one of you here sitting. 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, you can read her. She's one of you. She's written books about ordinary life, about people, ordinary people. She grew up in a family, no money or very little money. She decided to become something. She got pregnant. She had to make an abortion because she couldn't survive with the child. She married at 23, had children, and then she's written a lot of books. This is going to be a very, very, very popular Nobel Prize because this woman is lovable. She's extremely smart and writes extremely well. And yes, well,
so yeah, we've received a package already.
4 or 5 books
from the Academy.
There's 4 or 5 books in Swedish. You can start reading her right now, if you want.
Can you take us through any?
Yeah, this is an order. I've read this one. It's called The Years. It's her autobiography. It's hard stuff because it was a hard life. Being a woman in France, born 1940, was not an easy thing. And being a woman from the working class in France, you know, France is a country very much divided into an elite and then into a big mass of ordinary people. And she comes from this big group of ordinary people and has worked her way up into the elite, but she's never lost the touch of her background. And I saw her on television yesterday, because there's an interview in the Swedish Litterature program, and she lives outside Paris, and she said when she goes out on her balcony, she can see Paris, but they can't see her. And she thought, this is perfect. I can look at them, but they can't look at me. So what she writes about in her books is the way of a woman to freedom of expression, to say what she wants, to live the life she wants to live. And that's hard fighting. I don't have to tell you children, you girls, that it's hard fighting. I have to tell you boys, that's hard fighting for you as well. It's going to be hard for you as well. Someday you will write books. But Annie Ernaux is really, it's a great choice. I'm very happy with the Academy. It showed some courage now.
It's in 2014, we had a French author, Patrick Modiano.
He was a typical French author.
And there's been many French authors.
There's been too many French authors, you have to admit that. The French authors have been rewarded many times.
Does the Academy have some kind of...
Yeah, they have two problems. They love French authors and they love Swedish authors too much. But they don't love French female authors. There's a big group of French.
So they're breaking new ground.
Yeah, Marguerite Duras could have had the prize. Nathalie Sarraute could have had the prize. Marguerite Yourcenar could have had the prize. But they preferred men. Now they are correcting their list.
Do you think this is an effect of the renewed Academy? There's been some turbulence.
Annie Ernaux has been around for a while, but Annie Ernaux is also a writer who raised to fame pretty late. I think it's the last 10 to 20 years that she's really got the position, which is wonderful. You know, she's 82 now, and she writes very, very good books. This is one of the few professions where you can get older with dignity and full force. So it's not so strange that she got the prize at 82, because her big literary achievements have come late in life.
Okay, so you seem pretty pleased.
I'm extremely pleased.
Yes.
I'm extremely pleased.
Yes. You mentioned one work there. If you have to give one choice, where do I start?
You can start with the autobiography, which is called Åren, the years in English. I think this one is very good as well. And Flicka's memoir. This is about the hardship you could encounter, the hard times you could meet as a young girl in France in the 1960s. You know, France, as Sweden, was in those days a very, very macho country. Girls were free in a way, but they had to subordinate to men. Men meant so much more in France, as in Sweden. And the liberation, the feminist liberation of women in France has taken longer than in many other countries, I would say. But she's one of the most important persons, and that's what she writes about in her autobiography. And, you know, this little book, it was written, they mention it, it's called Omständigheter. You are so young, so you don't know what omständigheter meant when I was a young girl. If you said a girl is in omständigheter, that was a way to say she's pregnant. You didn't say pregnant, you say she's in omständigheter, and that meant trouble if you weren't married or you didn't love the man. And this is a book about abortion, which was not allowed at the time, neither there or here. But this is a book about the tragedy of abortion that so many women have gone through in the world and go through in the world today in many other countries than Sweden. You know the discussion in America where they are starting saying no to the right for women to have an abortion. This small book is probably a document of history.
So Omständigheter and the years.
Omständigheter and Åren, the years are the books.
So the reactions in the world of literature, they're going to
There's going to be people are going to say this is a great choice, because this is also a kind of fiction, a kind of literature that comes very close to personal experiences, which is a trend. People are said, you're going to write about your life. That is not so simple. And Annie Ernaux, she never says I in the book. She also calls her main character for she. Everybody knows it's autofiction. It's fiction about herself. But she puts up a distance. She says, that's the girl I was. That's the woman I was. Which is a very elegant way of letting me get into that position, even as a man. I can imagine what it was like. If she would have said I, it would have been only Annie. But when she says she, that woman, then
She's inviting the readers.
she's inviting
to-
me,
yeah.
she's inviting you, she's inviting to say, what would you have done in the 1960s if you had you became pregnant and you didn't know what to do?
Okay. So, speaking of inviting, let's invite the audience. I know that students here, you have prepared some interesting questions. Anyone who would like to pose a question, right here. Do we have a microphone? Thank you. Send it forward, please.
Hejsan.
Hi. Hey.
Jag
You can
heter
say if you
Kevin.
want to do it in Swedish, that's okay as well.
Aha.
Yeah.
Hejsan.
Hej.
Jag heter Kevin och det här är min kamrat Eimen. Vi har en fråga. Kan vem som helst bli nominerad och vad krävs för att bli nominerad?
No, not everyone can,
Can you
be
repeat the
nominated. Yeah, what does it take to be nominated for the Nobel Prize? Well, you have to be a writer. You can't be nominated just be yourself. And you have to have been a writer for quite a while. You have to have an authorship. That means you have to have proven to readers in your country and other countries that you can write well. Every year there's some 200 people being nominated. Some are nominated year after year after year. Probably there are more than maybe a couple of thousand writers who think of themselves, I could be nominated. They can't nominate themselves. There has to be somebody who nominates them. But basically, every writer can be nominated, but every writer can't get the prize.
Okay. Thank you for that question. Question over here. Yes.
Hello, my name is Raha. I have one question. It's like if someone in out Sweden is winning the Nobelprisen, but it cannot come to Sweden, they're gonna send the person to him or her land, or just must to be in Sweden.
If if Anja Noor can't come to Sweden, will she still
Yeah.
get the prize?
Yeah, the person go to other one, or will be just for the
Right.
people.
What will happen if she
No,
can't come to Sweden?
she will get the prize.
Thank you.
Most people come because, there's a big party at the 10th of December. And you know what? This is the only dinner that is sent live across the world. The only dinner where you can watch people eat on live television. So everybody wants to come there. It's a huge party. And the writers want to come. Most people, some haven't come. Some have said, I'm too afraid of that party. There was an Austrian writer, Elfriede Jelinek. She said, I have social phobia. I don't go to these things. She was awarded the prize in her home in Vienna. So you get the prize anyway, but we all want them to come here because this is the time where everybody looks at Sweden. That's why we are so proud of the Nobel Prize. Because on this day, today, and on the 10th of December, the world looks at Sweden. That doesn't happen very often, does it? So that's why we are so happy, even we who never get the prize.
Right. Any more questions? Over here? Oh, yeah, at the back.
Okej, hej. Jag heter Zeina och jag ska ställa den här frågan. Okej, varför tror ni två att just hon vann?
Because she's good. Why do you think?
Men
Why do you think she won? Well,
Något bra hon gjorde.
well, she's a really good author, but it's also a question of now there's a pressure on the academy. Everybody says, why have so few women got the prize? So in the academy now, today, there are more women than there has been ever before. There are 9 new members of the academy, and I don't know exactly how many of
I
them.
think 5 or 6.
5 or 6
women, yeah.
5 or 6 women. So the balance in the academy is shifting, and there are expectations. Now you can make up for all the sins the old academy did. So Anja Noor has been looked upon more clearly, but there's no quota for her. There's nobody saying, "Hey, there must be a woman this year." It's not that. She could only get the prize because she's so good. But the academy now is more modern and younger than it has been ever before. And that means it's open to the world we all live in, not just the old world the academy kind of dwelled in. So she's got the prize because she's good. She's got the prize also because she writes about female experiences. And we all know that that is what people like to read about, because most readers are women. I'm saying this to you guys. most readers in Sweden and in the world are women. There's a lot of catch-up to do for the boys, but that's a fact. So it's really normal that more women should get the Nobel Prize as well.
Okay, thank you. We had some more questions over here, yes?
Hi, my name is Brishna. I have a question. Have you read anything specific about Annie that you could relate to, like, very much?
Once again, have you
read something about, like, Annie that you could relate to?
I've read it, if I've read something about her
That you can relate to.
I can relate to. You can look up the SVT Play and the television program Babel. It's very easy to find. There's a wonderful interview with her there from her home outside Paris, and you will see that she's a lovely woman, and she talks wonderfully about her books. And one thing she says is that there's always a photo of herself on the books. So in her home, she's got one of these huge coffins with photos from all her life. And it's kind of, she picks up a photo and says, oh, I was 23 at the time. What happened to me during those years? And then she writes it and she puts the photo on her book. So at least all the French editions, I don't know if that's her in this, but this is her. You don't see this really, but this is her being 30 or something. So if you look at that interview, SVT Play Babel, you will meet her in her home. You will see it's a beautiful woman of 82, wonderfully smiling at you and being happy with being a writer and being well read now. And she didn't know that she would get the prize then, when the interview was made. And I probably think she's having champagne now.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear the phone call coming in later. I'll put a question here. So Alfred, the criteria says that it should be beneficial. The person who has conferred the most benefit for mankind. Those are Alfred Nobel's word. You've kind of touched upon it, but how is this beneficial for humankind? Do you think the Academy, how loosely do they follow the criteria?
You can put it easily. Mankind consists of men and women.
Sorry, it's supposed to be humankind. That's
humankind. The humankind consists of men and women. And sometimes you get the feeling that men know too little of the life of women. So what she can help men with is telling men about the life of women. And she can help women about telling them that life is not always so easy, but there is always a way through. There's a lot of fighting to be done. And if that is not contributing to humankind, I don't know what would be contributing to the development of the humankind.
Fair point. So would you say that she's particularly popular among women, female readers? Do men read Annie Ernaux?
I read Annie Ernaux, and I'm a man. She's readable to all men. So go home and put these books in the hands of your father, because your mother will get it like that. But then you will have to push your father to read it and say, if you want to know anything about me, if you're a girl, well, read her. That's the same thing with a lot of female authors. They are very important for men, but important for women as well. So
now that Nobel Prize stamp.
The Nobel Prize stamp. You know, the Nobel Prize is always very big in Sweden. Swedish readers, they go to the bookstores and buy them. I would say in an hour's time, you won't find any books by Annie Ernaux in the bookstores because they will be sold out and they will be reprinted, and then as Christmas presents, they will be sold. And then the prize is big in the country of the laureate. So it will be huge in France. But in the other countries, we wait until there's a German or there's an English or a Norwegian. So the Nobel Prize is always big here and in one other country, but not all over the world all the time. But people know of the Nobel Prize winner.
Will there be any critics who will be saying, you know, she's not?
Well, there will always be some critics. I've been one of those critics. I've criticized a lot of prizes in my years. I said that's a stupid choice or something. So there are always critics. That's what we have critics for. If all the critics would be to agree on a Nobel Prize winner, then it would be very strange, because there's no objective way of saying who's best in literature. It's not like football. 2-0, you win.
Yeah.
Books, literature are a little bit different. Yeah. So there will be criticism as well, but not so much, I think. No. Not so much. Not in Sweden, anyhow.
Any other questions?
I got a question.
Yep.
Wait, does it work? Oh, yeah. My name is Naseva, and I have a good question for you.
Wow.
What is your favorite work from this wonderful author?
It's this one. It's her autobiography. It's åren, the years. It's so simply written. So you don't have to be the best reader in the world to read it. The only thing you need is have a kind of open mind and just see, wow, that's her life. And then just read into it, and then you can think about your own life. And that's what you have literature for, isn't it? You read about somebody else, and that person could be in France or on the moon or in the jungle or in the history or somewhere, and suddenly you say, could it be me? Wow. That's what books are for. You're lonely in the world, and suddenly there's a friend. Somebody is saying, hey, I have something to tell you. So listen to me. And then we're two. And then you tell your friend. Then you're three. And that makes life easier, doesn't it?
Have we received any questions from... Oh, we have another one here. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I have one more question. Like, not all the people in the life can talk or speak English and Swedish. Example, if someone in out Sweden and out America gonna write book, and when them come translator to English, because like them choose the book in English, like the one who gonna choose like which is the best book, gonna read all the book or just the meaning from the book, and how the people gonna be sure is nothing change in the book and in them, like what is mean.
So you're asking about translation of books to other languages?
Like how is like the people from out the country who cannot understand English or Swedish is like gonna be sure my book is like go in right way and them translate everything and what I mean. Exact.
Good question.
It's a good
question.
Translating.
Today, every writer that is translated into Swedish can be sure that it's the same book. The same words, the same sentences, because Swedish translators are they're very good and they don't change anything. But they used to change it. Way back, the translator said, this is too boring, so I'll cut it. Or this is too hard for Swedes to read. But nowadays, professional translators, they do translate the actual book. They don't change anything. It is different in countries where freedom of expression is not so popular, to say the least. Their books are either banned. I heard you came from Syria. There's a lot of books that are not published in Syria because the government doesn't like it. As in many other countries, they ban books. They say this is forbidden. You can't read this book, or they translate it and they change the books. But nowadays, you could be pretty sure that translations are true to the author's intentions.
Thank you. Was there another
And maybe
question?
you saw the guys walking past you. That was the Academy.
That's the Swedish
That
Academy.
was the jury. Wow, no, you can't touch them. You can't touch them.
Yeah.
But they are normal people. They're having lunch.
Yes, eating food. So with that, or sorry, do we have any questions coming in from online, perhaps? Stephanie?
We do, and I'll be reading some of them. I'll start with this one. How do you think her life will change now?
Wow. There used to be a rumor saying that once you get the Nobel Prize, life is over. You can't write anything more. Because one day you're a normal author, you can be read, and then the next day you're kind of the king or queen of literature, so it's over. That's not really true. But what is true is that most Nobel Prize winners are pretty old. And Annie Ernaux, she's 82. So she will have a trouble writing more books because she will be on the phone every minute of the rest of her life. She will be invited to all countries, to all universities, to all literary festivals. So she has to free herself. She has to say, no, I have to write. But being 82, she's entitled to sit back, enjoy the money, because there's a lot of money coming in, and have better wine and better food than she's ever had in her life. She's entitled to do that because she's written probably 20, 30, 40 books, 82 years of age. Let her be happy with the money and the glory.
We can assume that she will come to Stockholm.
She will probably come to Stockholm. She looked very healthy when I saw her on television, and I don't know, but probably people who give interviews, they don't have social phobia normally. So she will probably come.
Right. Were there any more questions from the line?
Yes, I'll read a final one. Which other laureates does she remind you of?
Good question.
Oh, that's a good question. Which other laureates does she remind you of? Ooh, I would have to look back. There's a lot of laureates.
So you said she has some kind of autobiography. She writes autobiographies.
Yes, that has not been autobiographical work. Has not been rewarded that often. But all writers use their own life experience while writing. So it's basically. There's a lot. If think of the other French guy, Patrick Mondiano, who got it 10 years ago.
2014.
8 years ago. He writes about himself as well, but not in this way. He reminds me, oh, I get it now. There was a Swedish Nobel Prize winner called Harry Martinson. You could find his photo in there. He wrote about himself in just about the same way. Harry Martinson was born in 1910 or something. He was born in an extremely poor Swedish family. He grew up as a foster child. He was auctioned to a family that said, we don't need so much money to take care of this boy. And he fought his way up in the world. And he's written his autobiography, which is a brilliant book. När nässlorna brinna.
Blomma, right? No?
Blomma. Där nässlorna blommar. Du ser, I'm an old man. But she reminds me of him. And that's one of the best books in the Swedish literature.
Okay.
And I hope your teachers will force you to read that book, because that's a book that would remind you of her, though it's a book that takes place, the action takes place in the 1910s and 1920s.
Okay, so we've learned today that Annie, hang on 1 second guys, we've learned today that Annie Ernaux has become the 2022 Nobel Prize Literature Laureate. Very exciting. Thank you all of those who've been here in the room. Special thank you to the Year 9 students from Enbackskolan. And those of you joining us online, Svante, thank you. Join us tomorrow again as we will announce the Peace Prize, Peace Friday. Thank you.